Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. Now I have been busy off camera installing the rest of this interior here. I've got about 90 to 95% of the interior completely installed and ready to go. There's a couple small things left to do. I've got a rear speaker cover left to put it in there and install over the speaker. I do have the stereo to put in. I don't know exactly what I'm going to do with the stereo yet. I'm going to go with an OEM stereo of some sort, and I'll put it in there in a later video. But I did the speaker cover off camera because I didn't really know what I was doing. I had to recover it, so I kind of experimented a little bit, and I'm happy with how that turned out. So I'll show you that here in just a minute, how to recover that and exactly what I did. I went ahead and bolted the seats in there. I know they might get in the way with the sunroof going in here shortly, but I can always lay them flat. Not a big deal at all. I went ahead and sprayed the seat rails. That little bit of rust that was where the bolts go, I sanded that down, sprayed it with a little bit of paint. So that looks good. Let's go ahead and take a look in here, and I'll show you what all I've got in here. Alright, that's a pretty simple job. The speaker cover is installed. I'm happy with how that looks. I'm going to leave a link down in the description below for the products I used for that, including the fabric. So check that out. I'm going to go ahead and move on to the sunroof here. Now this sunroof is actually pieced together from 2 or 3 different sunroofs. I had to pull the one out of the car and it was in pretty bad shape. And then I ended up buying another one, but the cables on the new one were bent up, so they were kind of slipping. The gear was slipping. So I ended up having to pull the cables off of the one that was on the car, get them unseized after letting them sit in transmission fluid, automatic transmission fluid. So it's working now. I'm able to get it to move. We'll have to grease up those cables before we install it in the car. But pretty much I just have to clean this thing up. It's all functional now, which I'm happy that that's the case, because these things are pretty complicated. There's a lot of moving parts, and if any one thing's not working, the sunroof is not going to function properly. I'm not going to get into the details of the sunroof because I've shown that in a previous video before, but I just need to clean this thing up. It's got a lot of dirt and grime, and you don't want that in there with all these moving parts here. So I'm going to spray this out with brake cleaner, break up that old grease that was in there, and then from there I'll probably sand down some of these small rusty areas, throw a coat of paint on that, and then we're going to move over to the sunroof itself, which the biggest issue with the sunroof are these sunroof seal holders. There are some spots on it that have a little bit of rust. It's not rusted completely through where it's broken anything, so I'm going to sand those down as well. Probably do some Pour 15 treatment, and then throw a coat of paint on that and let that dry, and then we're going to put this thing together and hopefully get it in the car by the end of the video. sunroof assembly is all put back together. This is the aftermarket fiberglass panel that I purchased for that car over there, but I took it off because it had some waves in it, needed a little bit of body work. So it's looking really flat now after the body work and the new paint on it. I do have the aftermarket Golden Era Parts sunroof seal. The sunroof seal that came off of the car was in really bad condition, as most of them are, so I'm really happy that Golden Era Parts is making these seals available. They're basically made to OEM spec. They're super nice, so definitely go check those things out in the link below if that's something that you need for your car. The rest of the assembly was all cleaned up, and I actually added grease to all these channels and all the mechanisms here. And as you saw, I did use the Allen wrench to open and close this thing. Everything works really well. I'm happy with how it's turning out. Next step is really just to throw it in the car, and hopefully everything lines up just right. I went ahead and put the sunroof panel on it. That way I know where to bolt this thing down to without having to bolt it in there and then put the sunroof panel on after the fact. And then you would have to do adjustments to the tray after that. So let's go ahead and throw it in the car, and hopefully this thing bolts in there and lines up just right. Alright, well, today's goal has been achieved. The sunroof assembly is installed and functional. Now, this is a fiberglass panel, so the form and fit is not 100% OEM. I'm satisfied with it and happy with how it looks, don't get me wrong, but it isn't completely flush. It's got an extra little bow to it, so it sits up a little bit higher than the OEM panel would. Not a big deal. It is a lot better than a rusty sunroof panel, which is what you get on most of the CRXs today. So in a later video, I will go ahead and finish up the interior, just a few little things that snap back up in the ceiling of that car, and then the interior and pretty much almost all the exterior will be complete on the car. A few little small things like the hood washers and the hood emblem, but I do have a little bit of buffing and polishing to do before I put those on. But I hope you've enjoyed today's video, and stick around for the next one.